Hey, everybody. Welcome to Whisky and Weird, episode 9. I'm really excited to have a guest again. I'm finding that that's a really fun experience for me. As much as I love to just talk, it's a lot more fun to talk with somebody. So anyway, to all of those chiming in, listening in on your favorite podcast app, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening in. You can find me now both on Facebook and on my YouTube channel at Whisky and Weird. So if you'd rather watch, I invite you to do that. And let me get my space blessed here really quickly, as I always like to do. But I'm excited. We're gonna have a little fun with some holiday cocktails. Maybe if I can get my stuff lit. Okay. All right. So yes, here we are, Whisky and Weird. Episode 9. We're gonna add an ounce of weird to our some cocktails, and I have my friend Shawn Corr. He's here to share some cocktails too. So I'm gonna bring him right in and invite him to introduce himself to us, and we're gonna get started. Hey, Shawn, welcome.
Hello. We're gonna get weird.
We're gonna get weird. Well, we already are weird, right? So we're gonna get more weird. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Shawn.
Well, you know what? I went to Valley High School back some odd 30-something years ago. And you know what? I was probably one of the weird people back then. I was the only guy that was an editor on the yearbook staff that year. So it was me and four girls trying to get the yearbook put together. So I kind of knew everybody's faces and everybody's names back then, but a lot of that is really gone by the wayside. I still recognize names, but I'm like, oh, that's who that is. So I actually looked in the yearbook yesterday just so I could kind of get some memories of you. So
that could be good or bad, right?
This is true.
Yeah.
The mistake was starting with the baby picture in the back of the yearbook, but that's, we won't go there.
That's what you looked at first, was my baby picture?
Well, yeah, because that's back by where the directory was. So I had to look at all the pages, and I just started from the back and just flipped backwards because I knew what the senior picture looked like. So I kind of went backwards, and it was a volleyball and that kind of stuff. So
that's funny. It does. I mean, it is nice to have that, and it does, when you're looking at the yearbook, it definitely takes you right back to that place a little bit, right? But I find, maybe you can share. I find that that's where most of my memories are just with the things that I have these pictures that can draw it out. There's plenty of things that that I don't remember. I mean, sometimes people bring things up and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it's not like I was a drinker or did drugs or anything like that in school. I was a pretty normal kid. But it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I think you were a little above the normal level. I was down on the normal level. You may have been up in the higher rankings.
The higher rankings?
Yeah.
I don't, well, we can get to that. I think there's a funny thing because I recently connected with a friend that I was really close to in high school, and he and I chat every once in a while now, and we've had a lot of conversations about how we really felt in high school versus how people perceived us. And I've come to know I'm an introvert, but I know how to behave in a very extroverted way. And I did know a lot of people and I did a lot of things. So, I mean, there's that, mostly because I played sports and things like that. But I wasn't very as confident or anything like that as I might have been perceived to be. I just kept myself busy. Probably too busy sometimes, right?
Yeah, was it idle hands are the devil's tool? So if you kept yourself busy, you couldn't get into trouble.
That's right. That is really true. Yeah. So anyway, I think we should get down to these cocktails since we've both been studying hard and trying to. So you guys, I invited Shawn because I know when we comment, and let me just say, those of you who are watching, chime in, please. Say hello to us so we know you're here. let us know what you're imbibing with tonight. And we each brought some different cocktails to share, some kind of whiskey holiday type cocktails. And when I invited Shawn, I'm like, think of something weird, like go with weird around this. And I told him it's going to be kind of interesting to see how we approached it differently, right? So I was telling Shawn before we went live that it's kind of weird in general for me to make cocktails, because I honestly have never made a real cocktail in my entire life. But Shawn, tell us a little bit about your experience, a little different for you.
I am the concessions manager primarily over beverages for University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So I run all the bars in the event centers. So, and up until this year, we had the National Finals Rodeo. So I would constantly be having to jump in and help in the bar. So I kind of just never went to real bartending training. Well, I did. Me and my wife took a class in bartending, but it really didn't help because it was more. I've always said that I can train anybody to be a bartender at the university because they're not asking for complex drinks. They want a Jack and Coke. Well, that's pretty obvious how to make a Jack and Coke. So it's like I can grab. I've hired Starbucks baristas because they have a good personality and said, hey, you can be a bartender. I've never made drinks. I'm like, you're making more complex drinks here than you will be in a bar. So, I mean, that's kind of my background, and I've been there for 20 years. Actually just celebrated 20 years last month. So, nice. And I just started with no experience and then just kind of learned as I went.
That's awesome. And that's how you do it, right? Like, honestly, this kind of piqued my interest. I find that I tend to think things, like, I have a complete propensity towards like thinking things are going to be harder or taking longer than they really do. So when I put these together, I was like, well, that was pretty simple. Like, it would have been a lot easier if I was creating drinks for more people, because, I had to I'm like, well, I'm not going to drink a lot of this over the next couple of days. So that was the trickiest part. I want to take a minute and say hi to Nikki and Tracy, who are saying hello to us. Nikki's got a Dos Equis that she says she wishes was a Jameson. Here. And Tracy's drinking her Pinot Noir tonight. So I'm just glad you guys bring your drinks. We're learning, right? We're supposed to be relaxing. So I'm going to share mine first. We're going to save the best for last because I'm really excited to hear. Don't give me that face. Yeah, yours are going to be way better than mine. So I did too. I looked up stuff. Shawn and I both happened to be on this Facebook page, a Whiskey Lovers Facebook page. So I took a minute and I posted there and asked for some ideas. And so, which was really funny because the two that I'm using tonight both came from that page, to be perfectly honest, but some of them were hilarious. I was like they didn't even sound good. I'm like, I'm not making that. Or there was a couple that didn't have any whiskey in them at all. And it just makes me giggle about just like the range of responses to that. A lot of cinnamon, a lot of fireball stuff. And then there was also a lot of screwball stuff on there too, which I am not, I really love screwball. I think that's fantastic stuff. I do not like cinnamon whiskey. However, I'm not a fan of. Everyone I know loves it, but I like cinnamon rolls, but I don't like things that are flavored, if that makes sense. So anyway, this first one I want to try. What's that? You love Fireball, right?
I love Fireball. I put Fireball in Mountain Dew.
Okay? So I think that was kind of the turning point when I'm like, I need to ask Shawn to come on and make some fun cocktails with me, because I'm like, who the hell thinks of Mountain Dew and Fireball? Like, where did you get that from, actually?
It was just, we brought it. We didn't even bring Fireball. It was Jack Daniel's Fire we brought in, and then something called Sinfire, which was a Pendleton owned product. We brought those in one of the rodeos, and that's when we still had Mountain Dew. We were still a Pepsi house, and I just like Mountain Dew. And said, I wonder how this would taste. And well, took off from there. And then my mom uses Jack Daniel's Fire to make her apple pies for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So,
yeah. So you shared that, I think.
Yeah, I like the Fire.
Yeah. No, and most people do. I know that's just that kind of is an unusual thing. Not most people really do like it. So this first one that I went with is actually it's Clementine whiskey and wine cocktail. And I thought it was a little weird. Like it's funny with cocktails. I'm sure a bartender has seen everything, but for me, the idea of mixing whiskey and wine seemed a little weird. But it was good because I drink whiskey. I also pour wine on the weekends, so I'm like, I want to try this, and it was actually really easy. So it's just, it was. I did a simple sugar with oranges. It actually called for clementines, but I had mandarins at my house, and I'm very much about like using what's available to me instead of going out and buying a bunch of stuff. So I used that. So I made a simple sugar, which I've never done that before in my entire life, which is funny. Most people when they're almost 50 have made a simple sugar at least one time. And then it's just whiskey, 3 ounces of whiskey, a little half of a lemon. And then it says you can't add maraschino cherries. I chose not to do that because I don't like them. And then 3 ounces of basically a cab sav. So I have the whiskey and the simple syrup here. Did I say simple sugars? Is that what I was saying before? Probably.
Yeah.
Simple syrup is what I meant to say, not simple sugar. That's like science right there. So simple syrup. I was looking at the word sugar on my recipe here. Simple syrup. And, you can chime in and correct me. I won't be offended. Like, Lauren, I think what you mean to say is.
No, actually, it was when you said about the cherries, I was going to say I also put Fireball. I empty out half a bottle of the juice in the cherries and put the Fireball in there. So I have Fireball cherries. So.
Ooh, there you go. That sounds pretty cool, actually. I wouldn't like it, but I can see that would be a popular thing. So this has, of course, its own recommended wine, but I have some Cab Sav from Castillo de Feliciana, the winery that I pour for. And so it says to float it. And I don't know if I can put the, I don't know. Maybe I won't show anyone because I don't know how well it will go, but I'll show you afterwards. But this will be a first for me. I've never floated anything on a cocktail. Ooh, it's working. And it's really pretty. Wow. So I'm going to show that to you guys with a little wine float on the top.
Nice.
It's pretty good. I do love this Cab Sav. It's called Adentro. And so let's see. I haven't tasted it yet, so we'll see how it goes. It is pretty though, isn't it? Very festive. It's not bad.
I think it's going to be heavy on the wine because the wine's floating on top. So you're definitely going to get more wine than the other.
Yeah, you definitely. But surprisingly, it's kind of like you get the wine up front, but then you get the whiskey mix on the back end, surprisingly. But you're right. The first thing you get is the wine. Now, if you are not a wine drinker, you would not like this at all. Like it's a really specific kind of cocktail. So. But it is pretty good and really easy to make. I know a few people who would like it. But yeah, I don't know that I would make a habit. I would choose either wine or whiskey, whatever. So anyway, so that was my first one. Kind of odd. I've never seen wine floated on a whiskey cocktail. And then the other one I had was pretty easy too. I clearly like cranberries because both of mine that I ended up choosing were that. And like I said, for me, the weird in all of this really came from this was kind of outside of my comfort zone, not having made them and having to kind of put them together and take the time. And I actually was stressed out all day because I'm usually working until 5. And I was like, am I ready? Whatever. So this one's just a holiday whiskey fizz. This was really pretty easy to make too. And I actually improvised a little on this one. So it has, it also does like a simple syrup with cranberry juice. But I actually, what I did instead, because I didn't want the sugar, is I just mold it, because it has you put a little rosemary in it and a cinnamon stick and boil that in this with the sugar. But basically I just left out the sugar and water and I just mold cranberry juice because I thought it would be more enjoyable for me. And kind of left that in my crock pot all day, which was kind of fun. Whatever whiskey, it recommends a rye whiskey. I actually did get a rye whiskey from a friend as a Christmas present the other day, but I haven't tried it yet. So I didn't want to break it open and put it in a cocktail. I'm going to save it for one of the shows. So an ounce and a half of whiskey, couple tablespoons of the cranberry juice, basically, and then topping it off with club soda. Again, improvising with what I had on. I did have a citrus flavored kind of soda, and I just used that because I had it. And I knew if I bought a bottle of club soda, no one would ever drink it. It'd be stuck in the fridge forever. So this is what it looks like. I did add the garnish with the, let's see if I can get in there, with the cranberries and the rosemary. It's kind of a gross color though, wouldn't you agree? I don't know if it's because I chose, well, here's the thing. I didn't use cranberry fruit cocktail. I used actual cranberry juice. And I think with the cinnamon mold in it, it had that. So it's kind of a funny color, but otherwise kind of pretty. But when people come up and they just order a whiskey ginger or something, I simple, keep it simple. But this was actually not a big deal. I'm going to remove this sprig of rosemary and take a little bit.
Yeah, how does it smell?
It smells like cranberries, actually. It could have used a little more whiskey to my taste. My other one is a little stronger. I probably would put more than an ounce and a half of whiskey in this, but that's just because I'm used to it. A little less exciting than this, but in terms of like flavor and sweetness. But if I was going to drink more than one, I'd probably go with this because too much of the sweet gets to me a little bit. So, and I probably could try it with a simple syrup next time and see if it tastes a little better. But yeah, cocktails are, and then the floating stuff. A lot of people think that floating stuff in their cocktails is weird too. So I love that Nikki's totally.
I know somebody's really engaged. I love this.
Mm-hmm. It's my friend Nikki. So she said, that's a color that occurs in nature. Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of a brownish, reddish kind of look. But anyway, so now I have two cocktails here to enjoy. I want to tell you about a couple others. And I would love for us to share these recipes on the page too, maybe in the comments, Shawn, right? Yep. And there was another one that I wanted to try that talk about simple, was just like a cranberry rosemary julep, but it was too simple. I just was like, no. And then there was another one that was a pickle juice cocktail, a pickle juice and whiskey cocktail.
Somebody talked about Jameson. I bartended a couple private parties, and they actually requested that we bring in pickles for picklebacks, and they were doing Jameson with picklebacks.
Yeah. So and that's like the thing, you know why? Is because pickle juice has electrolytes in it. So it helps with the with hangovers. And so this was about combining them both in one cocktail. So I wasn't really about to go and get, it actually required more stuff than I really wanted to get, but I am really intrigued by the notion. I thought, I do love pickles. So I thought that would be interesting. And when I do my Susan G. Komen walk every year, they in recent years, they've started having little cups of pickle juice for us along the route to kind of replenish our electrolytes. So I don't know.
Who knew?
Right? It is weird, but is it any more weird than Mountain Dew? I don't know.
You know what? I can't. I can't explain it. It's just something I love Mountain Dew, and right now I'm drinking Mountain Dew sugar free because I'm trying to keep my sugar down. Uh-huh. So I do the Mountain Dew sugar free with whatever, and I mix it with everything. I mix it with Jack, with Crown, Mountain Dew is just my go-to mixer.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna definitely have to try it sometime. I'll let you know when I do. Did you see there's a meme going around that it makes a joke about Mountain Dew being the vaccine for COVID-19?
The original Mountain Dew with the what do they call it? Mountain Crack that had the real clean sugar in it.
Yeah. So anyway, I saw that the other day. I thought that was really funny. So anyway, that's mine. I'm going to share the recipes for these, and I'll share the pickle juice one too, because I see a couple people. Tracy said she'd try it, and Nikki loves pickle juice. So Nikki said on here, you should. Can you see the comments? You should do.
I can see the comments. Yeah, I love it. You guys should do a bartending stream segment sometime. Show us how to tend the bar.
You know what? I think this could be a fun annual thing. And you know what I was thinking? We could even make it a get people to vote on the things we come up with and whatever.
I would definitely have to step it up, because I went with stuff that I had in the house. So the only thing I really went and bought is I had to get some orange juice for my second cocktail, but everything else was stuff I had.
So, but I think it could be fun. We could step it up, right? Get more creative. But I did the same thing. I think you probably have a little more insight into what probably can mix and does what mix. So that's why I kind of sought people's input on it. But yeah, no, I'm pleased. You know what? This show is about a lot of things, one of which is inviting myself and other people to step out of their comfort zone, right? So so that's what I did. So without further ado, though, I'm excited to hear what you've come up with, Mr.
So I went back like really old school. Growing up, I used to always come home and have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So we all know about Screwball, and that quote that what I posted on the page earlier is actually written inside the back of the bottle. That's an exact quote from in there. I'm like, wow, how weird is that? That explains us completely.
Right.
So I'm going to make a peanut butter and jelly shot. So there's multiple ways to make it, and the easiest way is the way I'm going to do it. But other people have told me that they actually get jam, crush it into a small colander, and pour the whiskey over it to get the essence of the jam into it. And then they dump the jam in and then mix it up, which kind of would make it a little bit too crunchy for my taste.
There would be a texture for sure, right?
Yeah, there'd definitely be a texture. So I went and got just some raspberry liqueur.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So
yeah,
it's going to be a really simple mixture. It's a shot, and they say to actually shake it up and everything, but I'm not. I like to kind of sway it around and with the ice cubes and everything to kind of sometimes dilute it, but also give it more of a. Because depending on what you're mixing it with, sometimes it gets a little overkill. So I'm just thinking it's just 1 ounce of the Chambord. And then 2 ounces of Screwball. I mean, and it's that simple. And you want to talk about smell. I mean, that's peanut butter.
Right. I love that stuff. I can't have a lot of it because it is pretty sweet, but a little shot like that would be perfect.
Yeah,
because I feel like we always do the same kind of shots. You know, when you're with the same group of people, it's always the same thing. But this one, I feel like my people would like. You know,
yeah, this is really good, and it's just like I said, it's just a shot. I just put it over ice. Like I said, they say to put it into a shaker and then strain it. But I mean, you get the peanut butter and jelly smell.
Oh, that's fast. That's amazing, Shawn. I love it. I can't wait to try. Yeah. And I mean, I think if you're pouring for like 5-10 people, yeah, you're going to put it in a shaker because then you can quickly do pulls. But when you're pouring for yourself, I don't think that's so necessary. I think you'll still get the same effect.
Yep. All right. Let me get my other liquors, because this one's it's got 3 items there.
Okay.
So root beer whiskey.
Sweet. Never had that. Love root beer.
Sailor Jerry, which is basically better than Captain Morgan in my opinion. It's 92 proof instead of 80 proof.
Okay.
It's got a bit more octane in it. and that's going to be OJ. Let me grab my. Yeah, and that's you got a little bottle of OJ.
Hey.
So again, this is just the simple shots of the spiced rum. You're doing 1.5 ounces, so it's got 1.5 ounces of each of the liquors, and then 1 ounce of the OJ. So the OJ is not really, there's less OJ than there's anything else, which is kind of different than when you're making drinks. You normally get Jack and Coke, you get 1 ounce of Jack, and the rest of the cup is Coke.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of, the OJ is just there to kind of add some little bit of flavor.
Yeah.
This one's good. I tried this one earlier just to see because I was like, "Ooh, this is going to be interesting." So
it is. It sounds really interesting, but you know, like when I screwed up and was saying simple sugar instead of simple syrup earlier. It's science, right? Everything about it's mixology. It's everything about cooking and all that.
That's the good thing about mixing drinks is that if you don't like how it tastes this way, then you just change it. You change the recipe.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a lot of there's just so much flexibility like that. Like even when I was making mine, and I was like, I don't know if I'll like that. I'm going to do it this way instead, and you know,
and that's,
you make it work, make it work for you.
Great things about mixing drinks. You just mix it how you like it. So this one's. There's not a real distinctive smell to it because the OJ and the Sailor kind of covers up that root beer smell because it's a really strong root beer smell in this. But
yeah,
this is dangerous.
Hey, that sounds like my kind of cocktail.
Yeah, that would definitely be a dangerous.
Goes down pretty easy.
With the flavored. Let me see here. Yeah, with the flavored whiskeys, they're lower alcohol. They're only 7. I think this one's 70 proof, and this one's they're both 70 proof. Whereas this is 90
plus, right?
Yeah. So
Shawn, do you know? So that's a root beer. Is there are there a lot of different root beer whiskeys, or is it pretty limited that flavor?
The root beer one's pretty limited. I only saw like a couple when I was looking for recipes. I only saw a couple that actually had a root beer flavor. But Screwball says they're the first peanut butter one, but now there's a whole bunch of different peanut butter whiskeys out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's kind of like, how the cinnamon whiskeys started too, right? Somebody has the idea and everyone else follows suit. So
yeah, Fireball came out first, and then Jack said, "Oh, let's do a fire." Then I think Crown had a fire for a little while, but I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. That's cool.
And the other thing I tried today was I wanted to make like a root beer float, but instead of putting it over ice, what I did was I put a scoop, or like a spoonful of ice cream in a glass, and then put the shot of root beer over the top of it.
Ooh. Was it good?
It wasn't quite what I was hoping for. So I gotta maybe try it with different kinds of ice creams.
Yeah, different ice creams, or maybe even enhance it a little bit with actual root beer, but with the whiskey. I had a peanut butter whiskey chocolate milkshake once that was amazing. Ooh. And it was with Screwball. And yeah, it was really good. It's really good. So I'm liking it. I'm liking these cocktails. I'm really excited to have some cool stuff to try.
Yeah, like I said, there were some other ones that I found as well with both of these. If you go on the Screwball website, they had like 30 recipes. So it was incredible. But a lot of them had a whole lot of different things. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy all these different items just to try it once.
Yeah. So that was me too. So you and I were kind of on the same page with, okay, what can we make with what we already have in our house? And improvising a little bit. And that's what I did. I actually like the rosemary and the cranberries. We have a ton of rosemary bushes in our yard. So I have tons of that. And I just had this other stuff. So it actually worked out pretty well. So that was that. Yeah, that was pretty fun. I'm excited to kind of have these. I have a daughter who will be turning 21 in March. I'm sure she doesn't ever drink cocktails yet, but she'll be really excited to hear about these, right? And speaking of her, I'll put a little plug in. My kids are going to come on in my next episode in 2 weeks and share their weird stories about me, like on live. I'm gonna bring them on, so that could be kind of funny. But now that we've gotten the cocktails out of the way, let's talk a little weird. Like clearly whiskey is a thing for you, but you've made it. I mean, you chime in quite a bit in terms of the things that I talk about. So clearly, it resonates with you a little bit. So. I mean, what makes you weird, Shawn? What are the things you think that are most unique about how you think about the world?
You know what? We were talking earlier, and you were talking about how you were an introvert, but the person I remember from high school was not somebody that I would describe as an introvert. It was somebody that the group you hung out with were the I don't even know how to explain it, because like I said, I was on yearbook, so I saw everybody. I knew who everybody was because I had to know them from the yearbook. So it's like I would know everybody's face and name, and it's like certain people resonated. I remember her, and I do. I remember you, and now I remember. Now I know why, because it's from psychology. So
yeah,
it's like I know we had classes together. I mean, but a lot of it just kind of flowed together.
Yeah,
it wasn't really anything memorable. So
for sure. And like I said, I have some extroverted tendencies, but they're learned. I was a military brat, so I think that one thing military brats learn is you have to know how to make friends and show up for people. And so but I look back on high school. Like I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, what could I talk about? Because I figured high school would probably come up, right? Like, do you like high school? Is it something for you that you do it again, or you just would rather never go back? Like, what do you think?
I would do it again, but I would probably do some things differently.
Yeah, right.
So,
if only, right?
Yeah, if only I could go back and just do certain little things differently, and not, be more outgoing. And
yeah. Well, it's funny. Like, I think a lot of people, like, you think about the people that were hard to deal with, right? The people who were not very nice, and as an adult now, when I think about how I struggled in high school, it becomes really apparent that everybody struggles in high school, right? And like I have what's that?
It was how they dealt with it. We thought they were difficult to deal with. Well, that was their coping mechanism.
Yeah.
To get through that time where everybody was weird.
Everybody was weird. Everybody was uncomfortable, and and we're all trying to show up the ways everyone else wants us to, and really nobody's paying that much attention because we're all so worried about how we appear, right? Like nobody. And I think that's part of why we don't remember people, because in reality we were so up in our heads about how we showed up to things. And I talk about things I would change. Like, it's really funny. Like, you'd say, oh, the people I hung out with. And like I said, there was definitely, I knew a lot of people. I played sports. I did student council my senior year. I was in AP classes. Don't know why. I think I pretty much failed calculus my senior year. But I knew a lot of people, but I never felt like I was like really part of that group. I always felt like one of those outsiders. I was trying to think of like a movie character that would really be like that. How there's always those people that just kind of, they're there, but are they in? I don't know. But that's how I felt. But it was weird. I think the biggest thing for me too was like boys. I was terrified of boys when I was in high school, which is kind of an embarrassing thing to say out loud, but I was totally clueless. Like, I honestly had no idea. And I realized that I had like this habit of having crushes on boys that were completely out of my league, because then I didn't have to worry. Like nothing would ever happen with somebody who would never be interested in me, right? But then as an adult, I realized that I missed out on some opportunities that I now understood were actually opportunities, right? So, you know, it's funny, but I think it's important to reflect on it, right? Because I mean, I have kids. Do you have any kids, by the way?
I have no kids. I have dogs.
Okay, that's what I thought. I saw your jib jab the other day. So I saw you and your wife and your dogs. I'm like, yeah, because I hadn't asked you that before. But, you know, as a parent with kids who are, my son's a senior and Emily's, you know, you can just see them a little differently because you know what it's like to be that age, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird. Like, what about weird memories? What's one of the weirdest things you remember from high school?
I believe homecoming week when somebody drove up in their uncle's Ferrari and parked it in the because we had the car show going on, and they borrowed their uncle's Ferrari and pulled it in there for the car show and parked it next to my poor little Renault Encore, which was nothing. It had our 88 is dead and gone. 89 will carry on. 90 was quite cool, but 91 will always rule.
Oh, yes.
Window. And then he pulls up in his Ferrari. I'm like, who in high school has a Ferrari?
Right? That's cheating. You can't bring your uncle's Ferrari. What the heck? Oh, that's
I'm
really
my old beat up Renault Encore, which I'm not even sure that's a legitimate car company anymore. And yeah.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I mean, high school was just generally weird. I was trying to think of what was a weird, I don't know. You know what I remember? I was telling my kids this story not too long ago because I have this like, I've started, my son and I are taking a fight class together. Like I think I've shared, maybe I shared this dream on one of the shows where I have this recurring dream where I'm trying to like fight someone, but I can't land. It's like I'm punching through molasses. But I wish I had a punching bag. Like I would love to like to take that out. And I remember my friend Lamise. Sorry, Lamise. I won't say your last name, but I don't know. You remember Lamise, right? Oh. And our sophomore year, so we were good friends, but our sophomore year, we got in a fight. Like it didn't get physical, but we were in the lunchroom screaming at the top of our lungs at each other. And all the guys were like waiting, you know, like, because what guy in high school doesn't want to see a couple of girls fight? Uh-huh. Right? Yeah. And I can remember I could name all the boys that were standing there waiting for this to happen. And then the dean walks up, of course, and separates us. But it was like so completely out of character for either of us to like show up. And had we had like 2 or 3 more minutes, somebody might have thrown a punch. I'm just saying. But it was, you know, it was like probably the most bizarre experiences. Like I look back, I'm like, that's so weird that happened. Of course, what we realized, you know, later when we talked to each other was like we were accusing each other, but like we were seeing our own reflections in each other, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And from then on, we were like great friends. She was actually my maid of honor in my wedding and things like that. But that was a pretty funny, like it's weird in retrospect. It didn't feel quite as weird then, but I'm like, what a weird thing to have happen to me.
Things you remember, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, wow.
Our senior year was the first year that they had men's volleyball.
Oh, yes.
So, and I probably shouldn't say his name, and I won't. He was very accident prone, and he tripped up the stairs going to the volleyball tryouts and broke his arm.
Oh, wait, I remember this because I helped out with volleyball because I played volleyball, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I totally remember that.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me later. It's probably right. We probably shouldn't say their name, especially.
And the thing was, he was probably a lock to make the team because he was one of the taller seniors, because they only had I think they kept 3 seniors on the team because they wanted to build for future teams. But yeah. He was a tall guy, but he was just very accident prone. And I'm still friends with him, and he's he's continued in that accident-prone life.
Did he play other sports?
He may have played basketball, I think. So, and now he's a personal trainer and does motorcycle for like motorcycle riders, supercross riders. So, but I see him. I probably see him.
Oh, I totally know who it is. I totally know who it is. I should know this. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I know 100%. He used to come to my house. If it's who I think it was, I love the guy. He would come to my house and we'd have like people over.
JG?
My mom would always have all this food. What's that?
JG?
Yes.
Okay.
It's him.
Same person.
Yep. Totally. That's why I'm like, wait, I think I remember this. Yeah, that was a really cool experience. Because there was a few of us that had played volleyball that were invited by the coach to come and help with tryouts and stuff. And it was pretty awesome to be able to like show these guys how to play volleyball. Like just the kind of ooh and ah that they had, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that, because most of them had never played before. And, so we're like schooling them and how to hit and all of that. And for a high school girl, you're like, oh, this is awesome. Like, we're doing something better than the boys for about 10 minutes, right? Until they all learned how to play and then they could kick our butts. But yeah, that was pretty fun.
I'm not sure our senior year they ever got to the point where they could kick your butts. I think you guys would have beaten them.
I think we scrimmaged them one time for fun. Like halfway through their season, we pulled back together our team, and I'm pretty sure we beat them.
Yeah.
But we had been playing together and all of us had played volleyball for years, right? So yeah, that's really funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, high school.
We continued that clumsiness for many years. So you know that.
Yeah, he's such a great guy, though. Yeah, that's funny. Well, high school's funny. I was just thinking about the other day because I started that page about our high school reunion, and I'm like, is anybody going to come? Like, because our 30-year high school reunion is supposed to be next year, so we'll see what happens. But yeah,
I almost think we should get the class of '90 to kind of maybe go do it with us, since they kind of completely didn't have a reunion.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Maybe do a combined reunion with them, just because. I mean, I'm sure you had friends that were a year ahead of us.
Oh, absolutely. I had a lot of friends.
And I had a bunch of friends that were a year behind us. So, so everybody from my neighborhood.
That's a good idea, Shawn. I'll have to check that out. So just getting back to kind of some of the weird stuff, like what, have you ever had, I mean, I've talked a lot about my weird experiences. Like, have you ever had any weird kind of stuff that has led you to this place of really being open to some of the weird stuff that I bring up on here? Or is it more just kind of curiosity, open-mindedness kind of thing?
Well, I mean, it's open-mindedness, but it's a lot of the stuff that I read is stuff that kind of revolves around that paranormal stuff. I mean, there's a lot of ghosts in graveyards. One of the authors I read, Jim Butcher, it's his main character is a wizard, and one of the things was he died, and like for a whole book he was a ghost, just kind of going in and out of everybody's realities, and they were like dealing with him just being there but not being there. So just like kind of like it's always been something that's kind of interesting and something that I believe in. So I mean, I don't think I've ever actually felt anything. I do think there's some weird things that are going on in my house now, because my mother-in-law passed away in February, and just certain things, like the way my dogs will react sometimes, it's the same way they reacted when she was here. So it's almost like they're barking at nothing, but they're barking in the way that when she was still here.
Yeah.
So it's like they're sensing something.
That's pretty fascinating. I mean, it stands to reason, I think. I think that it makes complete sense that would happen. And even if they just come back periodically or whatever. So that's super cool. Yeah, I think I love the openness of people who really don't have any reason to believe stuff, because most of us, I mean, I think I always did anyway. A friend of mine in high school, as a matter of fact, I think I shared this. We haven't talked about aliens on the show yet, but she played volleyball with me. Another friend that I've recently reconnected with, we actually believed that we saw a UFO out in the desert. Like, back in our day when Green Valley was just starting to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
she literally lived on the last street, and then it was desert for, which is now, been developed for miles and miles. And, it was, so there's like little things, like all the time throughout my life, I've had moments, but I love that people have kind of this kind of awareness or interest without ever having that kind of more explicit experience. Because it's kind of fun to talk about it with them, like, what do you do? I know too that when we did the Dreams and Deja Vu episode, if I recall, you commented quite a bit like that, and you shared something. I meant to go back and read it about deja vus and how you experience them. Do you remember what that was? And can you want to elaborate on how that is for you?
Well, I have deja vus a lot. It's like, and sometimes I'll have the same dream multiple nights, and then years down the line, I'm like, I'm in a situation, like, I know how this is going to turn out.
Yeah.
It's like, I've been here before, and then you're running it through your head, trying to fast forward to see what the outcome was, and was it a positive outcome? Is there something you should be doing to change what that outcome is? So it's almost like giving you the chance to redo it before you actually did it. It's almost like a separate timeline that you're like changing how it is going to happen.
Yeah,
that happens.
I think that's what I think. Now that you're mentioning that, that's what was intriguing to me about your about what you asked or shared, was this idea of almost this like lucidity in a deja vu, or like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, to have that moment where you're like, okay, I know I can do this differently than my dream dictates.
Right.
And I only recently, I've been doing a lot of work around dreams. I mentioned I've only recently gotten to a point where I can pretty regularly dream lucidly. And so that idea is really fascinating to me, where you're like in a dream and you're basically witnessing yourself in the dream, but yeah, deja vus they're so bizarre. And I've always felt like, though, they were an interesting kind of confirmation or affirmation of our current, existence. Like, okay, there's a question. Tracy asked, do you ever go to the cemetery by your house off of Eastern at night? Oh, I know it. Like, yeah, I know that cemetery. I never went there back then, Tracy, off of Eastern and Russell, right? Do you know where that was, Shawn? So I lived like right at
Eastern and Russell, Canada was. So it was Eastern and right by the airport.
Yeah. So it was this was this cemetery was really close to Cannon Junior High School. So if you kept going, whatever direction, I don't know what direction that was. Out
it's either Palm or Davis.
Palm. It was Palm, I think. Yeah. Is that what you're talking about, Tracy? You'll have to tell us. There you go. So I do remember that. I remember being there one night with people, but we weren't ghost hunting. I don't know what we were doing. I wasn't really into that back then. It hadn't really occurred to me yet. But if I'm ever back in Vegas, I don't know if I guess if I do a high school reunion, I'll be there, right? Davis. Really? Was it Davis?
Yeah, because I think Palm's down closer to past Warm Springs.
Okay, but they're both on Eastern, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So I think that, but see, you're onto something there, Tracy. Haunted cemeteries could be a really interesting conversation, right? But anyway, so yeah, dreams and deja vus are pretty fascinating things. I just had this dream. So I'm taking this class. That's just, it's kind of out there. I'll have to talk about it. But we were talking about lions showing up in your dream. This was a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, oh, and the instructor was talking about how lions tend to represent some sort of fear in our lives that we're not, surrendering to or whatever. So the other night I had this dream where I got trapped in my bathroom by a lion that was outside my door. And somehow at some point I got out. Like I don't remember that part of the dream, but throughout the rest of the night, every dream I was having, there was a lion stalking me. It was the most bizarre thing, but I'm really into this place of like trying to figure that out. And so I sent to her and she's like, well, what is it in your life that you don't feel like you're surrendering to right now? And it literally led to this great epiphany and all of this stuff that I had earlier today. But dreams are fascinating. Like I could talk about them for days. And you mentioned like recurring dreams. Do you ever have moments where all of a sudden you completely remember a dream and like that you've had multiple times, but for whatever reason you're remembering it at some random time? Does that ever happen to you?
Well, I mean, more so when it's like a deja vu. But it's
Yeah.
like if I start having the same dream over and over again, and I recognize I'm having the same thing, it's like I'm now thinking forward, going, well, when is this really going to happen? Because it tends to be if I've had a deja vu, it's because something that I've had a dream of multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like the dream has had different outcomes each time you have it. So it's like now you're in this point where you're having this deja vu and you're trying to remember, well, what did I do to get to the different outcomes?
Yeah.
So then it's like you go back and you think, I'm having the same dream over and over again. Maybe I need to pay attention to it a little more because it's going to come up.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, I have dreams that are very, I have dreams that are realistic, but then I have dreams that are clearly just about symbolism and messages. And I'm like, why do you keep showing me this dream? Like, why can't I figure out what I'm supposed to figure out from this? And that's kind of dream. My sister said something to me the other day, and all of a sudden this particular dream that I was remembering that I've had multiple times throughout my life just completely came back to me like in this weird flash. And I was like, okay, clearly there's something about this dream that I'm supposed to remember, but I can't. So I don't know. Dreams are cool. So I'm trying. So I'm going to take, after I do my session, my episode with my kids, I'm probably going to take a little break in January again. And coming back, I'm like trying to think about some different things. So I wanted to get your opinion on what would be cool topics. Like, so of course, Bigfoot's a huge one for me. I'm a huge believer in Bigfoot, and I think it's a really fascinating topic because there's a lot of different beliefs around what and who, what Bigfoot really is, right? Aliens, of course, any cryptids, like what other thing, like would any of
those urban legends. I mean, like I said, the aliens are kind of like an urban legend. I mean, Bigfoot. I mean, I lived in Utah, and they had a thing called the Bear Lake Monster. They thought they had a monster in Bear Lake, and I mean, it's like different areas all have their own kind of folklore of different creatures and beasts. So
yeah, well, it's really fascinating because it is, in essence, folklore. But what's intriguing about it is it's, folklore is rooted in some ounce of truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can go back thousands of years, and there's, people and evidence, stories being told of people who are experiencing the same thing. Now, of course, I live in the Pacific Northwest. Bigfoot, for many people up here is much more than folklore. Like,
right.
Most of us really believe it exists, and there's a lot of people in this area who have had experiences. But anyway, I have a couple friends who are really into Bigfooting and things, and I'm going to see if I can get someone to come on with me and chat about it a little bit. People who've really gone out and done it. That's something I would love to do. It's kind of terrifying to think about going out looking for a Bigfoot, but it's something I want to do. But all cryptids, like, here's my thing, and I've mentioned this before on the show, like, people believe things. Like who's to question that, right? I mean, there's certainly people that make up stories, but when someone tells you a story about something they experienced, you can tell if what they really believe they experienced, like if they really believe it. And there's got to be something to that, right? And like Bigfoot, for instance, is all over the world, all over the country, all over the world, there are stories of people witnessing this creature. So there's got to be something to it. But I for me, it's not a question anymore of whether or not a Bigfoot exists. For me, the question still remains, what exactly is it? So that's what I kind of want to explore in a topic, in a session, because anyway, let's see. Tracy she mentioned that she's had recurring dreams about Bigfoot coming into her home and killing her family except her. I was hiding properly according to the news. That's interesting. That's an interesting
explicit dream.
What's that?
That's a very explicit dream. It's like
it really is. But Tracy has explicit dreams because she's shared other dreams that she has, and many of them are around the different topics that we're talking about. So maybe, you know what, Tracy, maybe I need to have you on and talk about these dreams sometime. That would be fun. So Tracy is a childhood friend of mine from Las Vegas, but yeah, so I'm excited about kind of looking at what some future shows could be. I love having people on. So Shawn,
the alien one would be good too.
Absolutely. We can go on forever, right? Honestly, I think you could have conversations about any of those. Like, it could be multiple episodes. The other thing that I think would be really fun too is, like, we talk about drinking our cocktails, is just to do like a Zoom with a bunch of Whiskey and Weird people and just chat, and whatever comes up, it could be kind of fun. So kind of like a Zoom meetup for whiskey weirdos,
we were at work. We were doing, when we were completely shut down, it was called the 1% Club, and it was like one person from each department in the building. And we just met up on Fridays on a Zoom meeting and just sat and talked, and it was like a happy hour.
Yeah. Well, I have a few people that are pretty regular viewers here that we've talked about doing Whiskey and Weird meetups around. And I think, honestly, it'd be kind of fun to get, enough of a following that people around the country were having Whiskey and Weird, meetups and sharing that. Like even doing one, like maybe that could be part of our high school reunion, is having a Whiskey and Weird meetup where we, are there any good whiskey bars? There's got to be good whiskey bars in Vegas. Are there?
Yeah. Well, if we ever get back open, yeah, there's some good ones.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's that whole booze district in Henderson that has a distillery, has a winery, has like 4 breweries, and it's really interesting. They've got, it's called Las Vegas Distillery. They've got some good stuff. They make a hybrid called a rumski, which is obviously rum and whiskey. So, and it's really good.
That would be pretty cool. It's been a while, actually, since I've been to Vegas, because my parents moved up here, so I didn't really have a reason to come down as often. But you know what? If I'm going to plan a high school reunion, which it feels like I'm probably going to do all by myself, I'm going to make it fun for me. So we will definitely be doing some whiskey tasting as one of our events.
Were you involved in the 20th anniversary one?
I was. I did most of the planning, and then I couldn't be there, so I had to ask Molly to take over for me. Yeah, I've been involved with all of them because I was the vice president, and our president doesn't show up for anything, and it honestly was part of the obligation, and I take that seriously, and I like to be able to revisit with people. I think it's really fun, actually. So some people don't like it, but it's fun for me to see people and catch up and kind of see how we've all turned out. And all of that.
The 10-year was kind of uncomfortable for me, but the 20, I was helping with the 20th too, with the K and trying to get stuff. But I didn't get to go. I couldn't afford to go. So
yeah, I can't even remember now why, but I couldn't. Something came up and I couldn't fly down, and it kind of sucked. But high school reunions are weird in and of themselves, aren't they? So
they get smaller and smaller every 10 years too.
Yeah. Well, the 10-year was weird because that's just, everyone's kind of weird just showing up there. So all right. So my my recording is going to go on me. So I'm going to say thank you to Shawn for being here. I'm really, really grateful, and thanks for everyone who showed up tonight and who listens in later watching the replay or via your favorite app. You can find me on all of your podcast apps, Whiskey and Weird, and I'll see you again in a couple of weeks when my kids show up. So thanks, Shawn. Have a great night. Merry Christmas and all of that.
Talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.